if you look at the statistics, unfortunately, the people who have the worst scores have the most losses and have the most crashes.
Right.
So I think, boil this all down of how scores impact, the data's there. Companies who get into crashes are going to get into more. Companies who have unsafe driving violations are going to get more, and that's going to lead to crashes because the number one crash indicator is speed. Companies who are over dispatching their drivers and pushing the hours of service limits are going to eventually have a crash where the driver was, tired. People with defective equipment and bad vehicle maintenance scores, they're going to cause a crash because their vehicle is defective and the brakes are going to go out because they don't have a proper preventative maintenance program. I've been through probably, yikes, I don't know, probably close to 100 audits this year, which is, equivalent to probably like an FMCSA investigator, in terms of volume. So we're very well in tune with how those go and what they mean.
Awesome. So you sort of addressed it already, but Jared, are you sort of a trucking fairy godmother? Do you have a magic wand and you can just wave things away? Is it that easy?
I wish. That would be awesome. And I think that would be amazing. But I think in terms of kind of how we like to kind of put things, we are middlemen between the regulators and the government and our carriers. We want to be there. We are support staff and support for the industry on both senses.
Yeah.
We want to support the FMCSA with, at the end of the day, their rules and regulations are there to kind of save lives. So I don't want to discount that. Regulations are there for a reason.
Right.
Do I think that there's maybe at some point too many, or they've been put in place without proper testing and protocols to kind of really flesh out the problem?
Right.
Yeah, that happens because you have different people who are governing, right? You get the right, you get the left, and they go back and forth constantly with over-regulating, under-regulating, what really impacts the crashes. At the end of the day, that's what they look at is crash numbers, fatality numbers. The last year is the first year that they've actually decreased in the last decade.
Yeah.
So, and what changed? A bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
What can you pinpoint anything that really made the impact? So we're not here to necessarily snap our fingers. I think providing knowledge on a front end base of hey, how do, I say a lot of times is just understanding these are the whether we think that this is fair or not, how we're audited and how we're, the roadside inspections and whether we think. I think that's kind of fine, but it's really knowing open book test, creating an open book test for yourself. That's the best way that I can put it is the carriers need to understand how they're scored. What are the metrics to being safe that the government says that they need to be, and then kind of falling in line with those guidelines and then kind of creating different processes and procedures on how you guys can make money and dispatch your drivers and do all that other stuff kind of underneath those guidelines.
And honestly, we get a lot of phone calls from people that they understand the regulations. Maybe they're bigger fleets. They have a good, full safety team. But a lot of times we get a lot of phone calls that maybe they don't know. What are a lot of times people who don't understand the regulations? What are they asking for? What do they think they're asking for?
You'll get larger. I think anywhere from larger to all the way down to owner operators have struggles with understanding what these scores mean. I'm going to be honest, some of these trucking companies that have grown into large freight carriers, 60, 100 drivers, they've been in existence for 40, 50, 60 years. Maybe they're still kind of living a little bit in the Stone Age, and that's great, right? These are the people that that's the backbone of our country. So I don't want to downplay that those businesses exist, but they haven't really got into the technology portion or really cared about why the scores are. They're just saying, hey, we just want to be safe. Yep. So you have them and they call you and say, hey, we got these roadside inspections and I need you to take a look at them and see what you can do. And honestly, the first thing I tell them is, well, nothing until you tell me which ones that you want me to take a look at.
Exactly.
And not to be, it's not to be rude. It usually kind of breaks the ice a little bit and, we both have a chuckle, but it's mostly, I need to know which violations. If it's already happened, we're acting reactively to it.
Yep.
If we're working with you on a proactive basis, then absolutely, I can kind of tell you how to prevent that stuff. And that's really the best way to kind of talk about it is we want to be proactive in our approach to our scores. Knowledge for the drivers, knowledge for the dispatchers, knowledge for the managers, knowledge for the mechanics. They need to know what the regulations are. It can't just be like a closed book that's thrown in the the dust pile somewhere in the corner. Oh, I got the regulation book somewhere. And then again, owner operators, sometimes they get caught, and really I feel bad for them because there isn't really a structure where the DOT comes out and gives you all the information that you have to be at a trucking company.
Yep.
You get the new entrant audit. That might happen in the first 12 months, but you've already been operating for 6 months. They don't limit you to how many drivers you can hire in that 6 months. So
Right.
I could hire 6 drivers. I have 6 80,000-pound trucks.
If you can get the insurance for it. But
Yeah,
yes.
well, yeah, right. That's a whole other aspect to it. But yeah, I could have 6 owner operators.
Yeah.
And in that end, I get 6 owner operators. The cost for that is minimal to
Right.
get people to lease onto you. And I have 6 guys that I'm under control of, and I don't even know how the scores work, what you need to do, how to manage these guys, whether I'm responsible or not. Some people think that they don't need to be responsible for those. They'll call me and say, well, my brokers won't give me loads anymore. They say my scores are bad. Can you look at it and see what I can do? And I said, unfortunately, you got pulled over without a CDL, 2 months ago. I say, hey, but is there legitimacy to that? Is there anything that you have that maybe you submitted your med card to the state, or you didn't have that suspension, or, it was already taken care of before you got the suspension, et cetera, and so forth? Is there something we can tangibly provide that this should not have been given?
Right.
And they say, no. I say, unfortunately, that violation is going to stand. And you're just going to have to kind of live with that. Problem is that's kind of a death sentence for some of these guys. Right. The brokers will not work with them. So how do you counteract that?